A press box, somewhere in the early 1970s. A photographer lifts his camera, and the mirror inside it slaps up like a door slammed in a silent room. Heads turn. The moment flinches. His neck aches. 2 black cameras hang from it like bricks, and his bag is heavy with more. This is what a serious camera had become. Big, heavy, and loud. The badge of a professional was the weight he was willing to carry. Everyone accepted it. A real camera was a burden. That was simply the price. Everyone except one stubborn engineer in Japan, who picked up the finest professional camera of his day, turned it over in his hands and thought, "This is still far too big, so how do you shrink the serious camera and teach it to go quiet without turning it into a toy?" It began with a man who believed a camera should disappear. He spent his life at war with weight. He believed the best camera was the one you forgot you were holding. Small enough to vanish, quiet enough to disappear. And in 1972, he aimed that belief straight at the giants of the industry. This is the story of the Olympus OM. Chapter 1. The Tyranny of Big. By the early 1970s, the professional camera had a shape, and everyone agreed on it. It was a single-lens reflex, an SLR, with a mirror inside that let the photographer look straight through the lens. It was a brilliant idea. It was also big, heavy, and loud. The mirror had to swing up out of the way at the instant of the shot, and it hit the top of its travel with a slap you could hear across a room and feel in your hands as a tiny shutter. The titans of the industry had settled the question. A flagship SLR was a dense black block of metal, and the heavier it felt, the more serious it seemed. Weight had quietly become a kind of proof. At Olympus, a camera designer named Yoshihisa Maitani refused to accept any of it. Maitani had loved cameras since he was a boy, and he carried one stubborn conviction, that almost everything about the modern camera was bigger than it needed to be. The bulk was not strength, it was just an unquestioned habit. He looked at the best cameras in the world, and what he mostly saw was wasted space. This was not Maitani's first attack on size. Back in 1959, he had designed a camera called the Olympus Pen, and its trick was beautifully simple. A normal frame of 35mm film was 24 by 36mm. Maitani cut that in half. Each picture now used a frame half the size, so a single roll gave you twice as many shots, and the camera around it could shrink to fit in a shirt pocket. It was cheap, it was tiny, and it was honest. Named fittingly after the pen you carry without even thinking about it. The critics sniffed at the small negative just as an earlier generation had sniffed at the Leica, but ordinary people loved it. The pen sold, and a half-frame version even arrived as a miniature SLR. Maitani had proven something to himself that would shape everything he did next. That small was not a compromise. Done right, small was the entire point. There was a particular kind of designer that Maitani belonged to. Not the kind who starts from what a camera is supposed to look like and decorates from there, but the kind who starts from a single, almost childlike question. Why does it have to be this way? Why carry a frame twice as big as you need? Why a body twice as thick? Why a sound loud enough to turn heads? Each answer he found was the same, and it annoyed him, because it had always been done that way. So he kept pulling cameras apart, in his head and on his bench, hunting for the line between what a camera truly needs and what it has simply inherited. The pen was his first public victory in that fight, but it was modest in ambition, as well as in size. A camera for everyone, for snapshots and holidays. The question that really gnawed at him was bigger. Could you do this to a professional camera? Could you take the most demanding tool in all of photography and make it small? By the late 1960s, Maitani set himself a far harder problem. Not a pocket snapshot camera, a full professional system. An SLR with interchangeable lenses, a motor drive, a microscope's worth of accessories. Everything a working photographer could possibly demand. And he wanted to build all of it dramatically smaller and lighter than anything the giants were making. Not a little smaller, shockingly smaller. His own engineers reportedly thought it could not be done. Every part fought back. To shrink the body, you had to redesign the mirror box, the prism, the shutter, and the film path. All at once, each one in an argument with the rest. But Maitani's team kept carving. They took the bulky shutter speed dial off the top of the camera and wrapped it around the lens mount instead, clearing the whole top plate. Piece by piece, the wasted space disappeared. What emerged was a system SLR you could close your hand around, and it weighed about a third less than the flagship giants beside it. But there was one problem Maitani cared about even more than size: noise. That mirror, slapping up and down at the moment of every shot, did two ugly things. It was loud, announcing the photographer to everyone in the room, and the shock of it traveled through the camera as vibration, which at slow shutter speeds could smear the very picture you were trying to take. So Maitani's engineers gave the mirror its own break, a small pneumatic damper, a pocket of air, that caught the mirror and eased it to a stop instead of letting it crash. The result felt almost uncanny. You pressed the shutter, and instead of a bang, you got a soft, muffled whisper. The camera barely moved in your hands. It meant you could work in a silent church, a hushed theater, a tense and watchful street, and never break the moment you were there to capture. The camera had learned to hold its breath, a serious camera at last that did not announce itself. In 1972, Olympus carried the new camera to Photokina, the great photography fair in Germany, where the whole industry gathered to show off. Maitani called his creation the M1. The M, as the story goes, was for Maitani himself. Set on the tables beside the heavyweight flagships, it looked almost wrong. A complete professional SLR, with all the ambition of the giants in a body that seemed two-thirds the size. People picked it up expecting a toy, and felt, instead, a dense little jewel of engineering. It was quiet, it was light, and it threw down a clear challenge to every maker who had assumed that professional simply had to mean big. The M1 was an argument made in metal, that all the bulk the world had been carrying was never actually necessary, but the name would not survive the year. Somewhere else in Germany, a much older company was watching. Leica, the firm whose own tiny camera had started this whole story decades before, already sold a famous line built on the letter M. Their lawyers reportedly made a quiet, firm point. The M1 name was spoken for. Rather than fight, Olympus simply added two letters in front. The M1 became the OM1, and the whole project became the OM system. It was a small humiliation, and in a way a fitting one. The camera that set out to honor the spirit of the original little Leica was renamed, in effect, out of respect for Leica. Under any name, the cameras did the talking. The OM1 was followed by a quiet, quick, light family of bodies and lenses, and photographers who valued their backs, their ears, and their own invisibility began to switch. The giants had been put on notice by a camera you could forget you were carrying. The OM did something larger than sell well. It moved the whole industry. Once one company had shown that a serious SLR could be this small, this light, and this quiet, the others could no longer pretend it was impossible. Compactness stopped being a weakness and became a feature worth advertising. Through the years that followed, cameras everywhere began, quietly, to shrink. And Maitani was not finished. He went on to design even smaller machines, among them a tiny clamshell 35mm that slid, fully protected, into a pocket, chasing the same idea all the way down to its limit. For him, it was never really about being small for its own sake. It was about getting the machine out of the way. Every gram you did not have to carry, every sound the camera did not make, was a gram and a sound standing between you and the picture, removed. The less you noticed the camera, he believed, the more you could notice the world. Yoshihisa Maitani spent his entire career at Olympus, and he never lost the boyish delight of someone taking the back off a camera just to see how it worked. He died in 2009, remembered by the people who designed cameras as one of the great originals, a man who treated bulk as a problem to be solved, rather than a law to be obeyed. His OM bodies are still passed hand to hand by photographers who love them. Small, beautifully made, almost startlingly quiet, with a viewfinder that opens up like a bright little window onto the world. They were built on a single, almost rebellious idea, that the finest tool is the one that asks the least of you. that a camera should sit so lightly in your hands and so softly in the air that you forget it is even there, and that what you remember instead is what you saw. Think about what he was really fighting. Not another company, not a rival lens or a sharper image. Maitani spent his life fighting an assumption, the quiet, lazy belief that important things have to be heavy. He looked at the proudest cameras in the world, machines everyone agreed were as good as cameras could get, and he saw all the weight and noise that nobody had ever bothered to question, and then he did the genuinely hard thing. He questioned it. The camera he built did not shout. It did not sit heavy on the neck or slap loudly in a silent room. It simply went small, went quiet, and stepped out of the way, and left the photographer alone with the moment. The giants of his age built cameras you could not ignore. Maitani built one you could forget you were holding, and in the end, that may be the highest thing a tool can ever do. If you made it this far, subscribe. We tell the stories behind the cameras that changed everything. The obsessions, the gambles, the quiet rebellions, and the people who refused to accept the way things were. Next time, the camera that answered in the exact opposite way, a professional flagship built like a fortress, unbreakable in the hand, from a company out to dethrone the giants and become one itself.